Here with Simon Chadwick, old friend of mine in the crypto space. I'm going to actually let him introduce himself. Okay,
So Crypto Quantum is one of my brand, like found Crypto Quantum, yeah.
all right. So if you want to just give the listeners a little bit of a background on what you do and
Yeah, so there's a bit to it, but so essentially I've been a trader, investor in the crypto space since the start of 2017. And so I come from, I'll start with just a basic of what I do, and then I'll go back through a little bit of the story because I think it can be quite beneficial to a lot of listeners.
sure.
But basically, Crypto Quantum, a whole of Crypto Quantum is building a bridge between, the mainstream and crypto and wealth. So really encapsulating mindset, the process of building long-term wealth and cryptocurrency. So understanding what crypto is, like the real deep concepts behind crypto from a larger level than just, it's just digital money. Wealth building, so really delving into mindset when it comes down to money and people's relationship with money, in terms of being able to build wealth. So not just the experience of exploring what the meanings around money are, and how to go from, a 9 to 5 job to being able to create financial freedom, but also like understanding and being able to create structure around wealth building for the long term. So, a lot of people, they might not know where to start with their investing. So they might be having money sitting in the bank and they're saving, but they're not really getting anywhere. So really educating around how they can start putting that money to work so that long term they can have that money work for them. The other part of it is obviously exploring cryptocurrency and strategies around cryptocurrency and how to build wealth without just putting all your money into one project hoping that you're going to get wealthy from it, but really looking at it from a strategic perspective of, how can I allocate funds in different places so that my money is working for me in different ways, and if everything drops, I'm not losing half my account.
Yeah.
On top of that is, also teaching people how to trade as well, how to read charts, how to understand what the market's doing, the cycles, price action, all this sort of stuff, whether that's to become a trader to accelerate the growth of their wealth, or whether that's to learn how to read the charts so they make better decisions with their investing. But that's basically what I do. And I run courses through Crypto Quantum to do that. But to just give you a little bit of my story of how I got into that and how I kind of fell into that space and kind of navigated to founding Crypto Quantum. 2017, I was working in a retail store selling suits. I had had exposure to crypto in the past. I got introduced to it around 2012, and I played in the crypto space with Bitcoin, but I never really immersed myself massively. It was more like a fad that was happening on the internet for like a bunch of select nerds were in it. And started 2017, I got back into crypto. Bitcoin was around $1,000. And a friend of mine was like, you got to get into Bitcoin again, And I was like, oh, I know about that. And he's like, it's $1,000. It's going to go up. And I started playing in the space, and, I saw that dramatic rise of Bitcoin in 2017. And, I was just I actually, at the time I did have a menswear brand. So I had a menswear brand that was selling belts, wallets, Italian made goods.
Okay.
But I wasn't really doing that well with it, taken off, but not really going anywhere, kind of just sitting in that sort of average place. And it was quite interesting. So my mindset was cooked around crypto, because what happened is I bought it at $1,000, went up to $2,000. I sold it at $2,000, went up to $4,000. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy back. And I sold again at $5,000, and I saw it go up like crazy. And for a while, I actually had some saltiness towards crypto.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've actually really told anyone this, but I had some saltiness towards crypto. Like, I had this righteousness that it's a bubble and it's going to pop. And I was excited about it crashing, because I was like, I'd made decisions where I'd sold it early, and I was like, oh, it's a bubble. It's just overinflated. It's going to come crashing down. And it kept going.
Yep.
And then I kind of got sick of it. I can't remember where it was. It was maybe around the $9,000 mark. And then I started exploring altcoins, and I got into crypto. And I actually made a solid amount of money. That was in a bull run where the market was going crazy. And I made a solid amount of money for me at the time, which was, I didn't have a lot of money. I was working for $21, $22 an hour in a retail store, had my menswear brand that wasn't doing too great, that I was pumping money into, that was growing, but there's no margins, so it wasn't going anywhere. And I remember looking at my phone. I was like, oh, I made, I was looking at my phone. Oh, this thing made me 2K. This thing made me 3K. And I made all this bunch of money, but I didn't have the mindset to keep the money. Like my mindset was not primed for wealth. It wasn't primed for keeping it. So what happened was I started going, oh, I'm a baller now. I'm a baller. I'm like, quit my job. But what actually ended up happening was I was like, it's going to keep going up forever. So I didn't sell. I didn't take profits where I should have. And my little brother was like, oh, I'm going to the Himalayas in a couple of weeks. Do you want to come? And so what happened was I was like, okay, the market dropped a bit. This was start of February 2018. The market dropped a little bit. I'm going to go to the Himalayas. My little brother, quit my job with 3 days notice. And I'm going to not touch my phone. I'm not going to touch it for a whole month. And when I come back, it's going to be really high. So that was my mindset at the time. It was like, just, no mindset for wealth or for keeping it. And I came back and the price had dropped, crashed. And so I pretty much wiped out most of the gains that I'd made in crypto, right? So I came back and, I was kind of in a place where I'd quit my job. I went back to the job, and it was, I don't know if you've ever felt this, when you've had a high and then you've come, have you had that, when you have this high and then you come off this high and then you're like, now what?
Yeah, I have.
You go up and then you come down and you're like, what?
I think most people that have applied themselves and haven't got that maybe feedback in the feedback loop as quickly as they expected. I think that's kind of, is that a similar feeling to what you?
It was a bit of like regret, and it was a little bit of like, I was on the top of the world, I'm a baller, like all this sort of stuff. And then my reality changed very rapidly when I came back to the real world. And then I'm like, I'm back in my shitty retail job.
Yeah. So
it was kind of like that.
There was a rug underneath you that had meaning written on it, and somebody pulled it out from underneath you. You're lost.
Big time.
Yeah.
Because for a long time I chased financial freedom, and that was my thing. It was like that chase for drive and success, and what my thoughts were around what that looked like.
Yeah.
But it didn't have any structure attached to it. It was like, okay, once I make this amount of money, I have financial success. But that's not true, because keeping it is a very different animal too. And I saw this as my golden ticket, my way out. Was looking at like a lottery ticket, that this was my way out of my situation at the time.
Yeah.
And because my business wasn't doing as well as I wanted it to, and even though we're selling, we're getting influencers, the margin sucked. And it was like, it was not great. And that was a pretty rock bottom time for me. I'd say it was more so before I went to Himalayas, before the crypto stuff happened. I wasn't in a great place in terms of where I was living, and just a whole bunch of things around me. And coming back, when I came back from the Himalayas, I was like, it's just the reality set in of like, I got to do something different, because this isn't working. So I actually went home for a couple months. I went down to camp. I went back down to Canberra, and I worked at the snow. So I went and I worked at a ski resort. And this is a funny story. I don't talk about this that much. And that's where I kind of got more into crypto at that time. So I had a lot of time. There was no beach down there. It was cold. So I had my computer. I was, got really sick while I was down there as well, because the weather didn't go well. But what ended up happening was, this was 2018, where the crypto market had these big drops. And at the time, not having the mindset that I had, I was involved in the space and researching lots of projects, but I didn't know how far it would go. And I kind of picked a couple of projects that I thought would go really, really well long term. And there were certain levels that I put, I was working at the snow, I was saving money, and I was putting it into crypto. And there's a couple of projects that went really low, and I lost a whole bunch of money in the markets because it was just bleeding to death. And it was quite demoralizing, because I was like, this is stuff. And I watched it keep dropping. I think one of them was a project called Ethos at the time. I put a whole bunch of money in. I think I put like 6 or 7 grand at $1, and it dropped down to 13 cents and then down to 2 cents. I sold before it went that low, but it was kind of like, I believed in this project and the team was great. Everything was great, but the thing was dying. So a friend of mine at the time, a guy by the name of Michael Sloggett, actually, and different story. He's gone through a lot recently where he's had to go to court for money laundering and a whole bunch of other things, but that's a different story. He had been a trader in the space, and they were running a course. They ran like an intro technical analysis and trading course. And so I got involved with that. It was like $200, it was $100. Yep. There was not that many people. It was like the start of it. And that was eye-opening for me, because I had finally gone and taken a plunge and gone, I'm going to invest in myself to learn something that I'm trying to learn that I'm not successfully learning. And I've been losing money, so I'm going to apply myself to this. And so I did the course, and it was mind-bogglingly eye-opening, learning how to actually read charts and learning about crypto and learning about this stuff. And that kind of kickstarted me on a journey to being able to build stuff up slowly. And there was so many mistakes along the way. I could tell you I got liquidated on BitMEX so many times because the mindset piece wasn't necessarily still there, right? It was like, oh, there's an opportunity here. I'm going to go 100x on this. And so I learned through pain. I learned through a lot of pain, a lot of errors, but it kind of built it up over time. And there was still a couple of forks in the road. There was a lot of what I call shiny objects, and kind of breaking this down like the hero's journey. But there's a lot of shiny objects in the way. I think Amazon, for example, was a massive distraction where for a period of time, I believed that I could build an Amazon business, and I went down this route, and I ended up getting myself very lost for a period of time where I was still trading and I was building up my account, but I was like, it was slow, and I was like, I want to make money now. I want to do this now. So it was constantly just like trying to find out where to go and which direction I was meant to go in. And it was very tough because I had not found a foothold. I didn't find that thing that had propelled me to where I wanted to go, because I wouldn't stick to anything for long enough. So every time I'd find a direction and I'd stop after a few months. So I'd go here, I'd stop. And I was constantly just being spread apart and not giving my all and focusing on one thing. But then it kind of clicked. And as I saw my account grow with trading, and this was started with smaller amounts, but it actually started to grow. And this was even before crypto was even growing that much, but I kind of like got some good consistency happening where it was just starting to grow and grow and grow. And it was slowly growing, and I was adding to it, and it was going up. It was still smaller amounts, but it kind of over time, it started to pick up steam. And then we got a few quite significant pushes in the crypto market that enabled me to use those skills and to use what I'd already learned trading when everything was going down and sideways to kind of build up and up and up and up and up. And then, came into 2020. I was trading. I was actually making good money in 2019, but 2020, when COVID hit, there was that big drop, and then there was a lot of price rises, and it enabled me to start to get even better returns on my trades because of bigger opportunities. And the count like compounded up. And it got to a point where, I had like really solid account and was making really, really good money, but my mindset was still cooked from the sense that I was still working my job. I was still scared to leave my job, even though I could have for quite a period of time.
What was your biggest trade to this point? Like, are you still playing within a sort of small realm, or?
Man, I think I did like a 15 grand day. That was a pretty solid trade. It was just a trade that went, I had a really tight entry and the price went up. I can't remember what it was. I think it was TRX. Yep. It was either TRX or Waves. It went up just like crazy and in a short space of time, and I made a lot of money in it. And for me at the time, to make 15K in a day, was quite solid. Now it's interesting, and I'll cover it when I go through stuff. My trading's a lot less than I used to, and it's partly to do with how much stuff I have going on. But I was building the trading, and I was at a place where I could have left my job for quite a period of time, but my mindset was still not there. There was still something lacking around trust, or something lacking around like backing myself to go and, leave my job and leave that security behind and go, hey, I've been doing good at what I'm doing. I was selling suits. I was good at what I was doing, getting paid absolutely nothing. Like if you look back, it was peanuts, right?
Yeah.
But the thing was, I kind of felt like I had that security on that side and I could focus, but I was kind of miserable at the same time doing that because it was quite a toxic environment. But I got pushed to kind of go, hey, now's time that I can actually pull the trigger and do this. And it was a big decision. I freaked the hell out after that. Like a lot of freedom, but I freaked out because I was suddenly like that rug was pulled, and now my account wasn't compound. I couldn't compound my account as much because, you know, I didn't have that extra income there that was paying for stuff while my account was growing and compounding my account. And I was still making a lot more than I was living on, but it was still quite a scary thought. But that was good. And it was exciting, but then I needed another challenge. And that's where crypto quantum came into the mix. I wanted another challenge. Like I thrive off teaching. I thrive off I've always been someone who likes to educate, someone who likes to delve deep into topics. And I love to interact with people, and I love to create things. And for me, trading and all that sort of stuff became easy. And it's never easy. It's still some difficulties, but it kind of got to the point where I was like, it was there, it was sorted, and I was still doing it. But it was kind of like almost on autopilot, even though you still had to think about it. It was kind of like, okay, now that that's sorted, and I figured these really cool strategies where I was using 20% of my account to trade for the whole account, and I had staking, and I had all these other things going on in there. But I wanted another challenge, and I got pushed to start, to start some courses, to start teaching, because especially I had a lot of people coming to me going like, I want to learn about crypto, I want to learn how to trade. And I was teaching them for free for a period of time, and it was draining my energy. And I had a lot of people asking me, and everyone was around me with coaches and stuff going like, you should do this. But I had very little self-belief from that sort of side. And I think my first course I charged $200, and I did a group course, charged $200. I got 13 people in that, which to me at the time, I was like, wow.
Was I one of them?
I think you were, yeah. So was it $200? $300, yeah. I think, yeah, you were. Yeah. So I got 13 or 14 people in that first course, and I didn't have the right camera gear. I didn't have the right everything. I had an idea of what I wanted to teach and what I wanted to kind of how I was going to bring people through this journey. And I was I was also a perfectionist because I wanted it to be amazing.
Yeah.
And people got a lot of value out of it. And I learned so much from that. But I also learned that I didn't back myself as much as I could have through that. So like looking back from hindsight, it was quite an experience to kind of look back and go, hey, this is what I believe I was able to do. Because it was kind of the start of this imposter syndrome thing, where it's like, who am I to teach? Like they could be learning from someone even bigger, or all this kind of, and I'm going to touch on this soon, because I think this has been an extreme lesson in this latest part of my life, which has been the ability to step into the unknown and step into greater things, and being able to say yes to some great opportunities and create something, and then backing yourself behind it. Sure. And becoming the person that you need to be to support those opportunities. But so that course went well. People got a lot out of it. I struggled with the engagement. There was still a few students that were all the way through, but there were about half the students dropped off about halfway through and were kind of wishy-washy. And it was like, for me, it was my first coaching. I'm like, why is no one engaged? And I was like, that's pretty good. Consider that's a pretty good number for a $200 course or something, or $300 course for the number of people that you had. But after that course is where I really struggled, because I had this initial hype and this first program. And afterwards, I did get the same traction that I wanted. Yep. And I was like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And it was more of a frustration that was like, I felt this was again the peak and then the drop. But this wasn't monetary. This was more like achievement wise. It was like, I want to create something cool, but I've had this spike, and now I can't even get anyone into this course. And everyone around me is like, you need to up your prices and you need to do this sort of stuff. And that was like really pulling on the self-worth strings as well, around like, but I want to make it accessible, but this sort of stuff. Right.
Yeah. And
then it's also like the self-worth piece, that I didn't believe that it was good as other people. And so it was like, it was almost this whole thing of I should charge less because I'm not as good. This whole story around that, right? And it was difficult because I was kind of juggling this, pushing up my prices, but then barely selling any of these courses. And I'm like, but I'd rather get the achievement side of things and have a lot of people that are enjoying this and building up the name brand than charging more for a course. And it was really worth a lot. It was the stuff that's provided was worth a lot of money, and it was really worth that in terms of courses. But I could see that because all I was thinking about was the number of people, and I focused on the wrong things, and I wasn't doing the right things that I needed to do to build that course. So it was a bit of a trickle, and I was still trading and doing my stuff. But it was a trickle, and it was a trickle of frustration because I was like, selling here and there, a few every couple of weeks. Started to build up some students, but it wasn't consistently like 10 people a week and growing and all the sort of stuff we expected. So that was an interesting self-worth example. I mean, I'm sure you've had that as well. It's kind of the same thing. You've kind of had a high. You've had 13 people in your program. You've had a lot of excitement, and then you're in the pit, and you're like, well, now what? Like, do I keep doing this, or do I just go back to focusing on my trading? Because I'm focusing on building this course. I'm actually losing money, like not losing money, but I'm losing potential money by putting energy into this rather than just putting it all into my trading. I'm like, I'm actually, I might sell a course for $1,000 or a few courses for $1,000, but if I'm focusing on my trading, it makes me, tens of thousands, right? So I'm like, why am I putting it? I'm still trading and I'm still doing this stuff, but I'm like, why am I putting so much energy into this? And it's actually like, it's actually taking away from my financial freedom and all this sort of stuff. So this is an interesting mindset piece about business, is it pays you later.
Yes.
And there's another lesson along the way that's like, well, firstly, I wasn't doing it first and foremost for financial purposes. Like, there was obviously a business in that, and that was part of it. But the reality was that it was about the creation aspect. So I had to recenter and go, what do I want to create? What's the impact that I want to have? What is it that I want to do? Rather than just thinking about the dollars. Because if I just thought about the dollars, I would have never done it. I would have just focused on trading.
Mm-hmm. But you have that.
But then
you have that opportunity cost that, like you said, it reconciles later.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a bull run. Like, then there's also the frustration of like, you're in the middle of a bull run where everyone's talking about crypto, but you're not selling that many courses, and you're like, what the heck? This is the opportune time to do it. And I'm still, and it was just a few tweaks. It was just a few tweaks that needed to happen for me to start selling them all courses. And, I actually worked with Ray for a period of time, and I really worked into like, my message around how to speak to the, what was the people I was actually trying to reach. Cause I was just throwing out this and hoping that people would come in rather than having a strategy around attracting people in. And Ray. Yeah. So Ray, I worked with Ray for about a month, and that was actually really enlightening because I was just kind of like all over the place. Everybody was trying to sell me on coaching. And I was like, nah, I'm not, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work for you. I don't want to work with you. But that was really helpful. And what I really got out of it was actually like, well, who are you trying to serve? Like, who are you actually trying to serve? And how do you add value to that specific person? And that changed everything, because it was kind of like, instead of just throwing out willy-nilly, I suddenly understood exactly who my tribe were, exactly who my people were, and how to reach them and how to add value. And so I started building this Facebook group, and I started pouring value. And I was like, it's not even about the sales. It's just about adding value, because this is what I'm here for. It's about adding value. I started adding value, starting a lot more sales. I built a second course that was focused on introduction to crypto, that was a bit smaller, easier for people to digest. So it was, how to buy your first crypto, money mindset, what is crypto, so understanding fundamentals, also like a bit of a wealth structure, so how to structure your wealth. And that was a massive hit, because I was selling this course that was, like $1,000 or $1,100. And it was like everything in one, it was like crypto and then trading and all this stuff. But there was no, like, sometimes there's too overwhelming for people. So they wanted something smaller that was an easier entry.
Yeah.
So I built that, and that really helped. And so that sort of grew. Those courses started to grow. The Facebook group grew as well, went up to, 700, 800, started adding value, started getting momentum. I built all this content that actually still has not been rolled out. I have all these banks of designers that worked on the content that I worked on with Ray that hasn't been rolled out, but I was still getting a lot of course sales.
Yep.
And that's that part of crypto quantum. And there's still a lot of vision and mission on that side and into crypto quantum. Groups growing, content's going to get rolled out very soon. But I took on some other bigger things, which we'll cover in a sec. I just want to kind of recenter. I've been speaking for a while, and I see if there's anything that you want to touch on.
Yeah, sure.
That you think is important in that.
One of the questions that I have is, how long were you trading while you still had a job until you got to the point where you felt comfortable that you could walk away from the job and still maintain an semblance of the lifestyle that you had?
So it would have been about 2 years, 2.5 years of like consistent trading. So 2.5 years of consistent trading got me to around, my account was around 200,000 US, around that. It was growing faster. You could probably wait for it to be longer, but you know, my track record with trading was pretty good. So it was kind of getting to a point where I was making good money. And even if I wasn't in the bear market, I would have still been making a lot more money than I was at the job. So because of that, I was able to go like, and be able to, you know, even it was kind of almost like there was a couple of months where I was actually, my account was probably big enough for me to be able to leave, and it was big enough for me to be able to leave my job and just focus on that. But I was still a little bit scared. There was a bit of fear and self-doubt in that. It's a bit of self-trust stuff that I dealt with at the time. That was like, even though I was growing and I knew that it was good, it was still hard to take that step to leave that job, because knowing my past was that I struggled to keep jobs and I was constantly all over the place. So it was like, I finally had this kind of stability where I was like, you know, I
think it's important. Everybody has to understand that the past and the future are both just a mental figmentation, that they don't exist.
Big time.
So, absolutely. And particularly the story that we add to whatever we think our memory of it is. It's just a story, like you said before.
That's it. Yeah. And it had to happen. I had to go through all those things to learn the things that I learned. And probably the biggest growth I had was actually in the last couple of months, to be honest, with everything.
Okay.
And it kind of came from self-trust around, you know, really saying yes to opportunities. So I got offered, so this guy called, what's his name? He was called Nuggets News, right?
Okay. Yep.
Anthony, was it Anthony? Can't remember his name, but he turned out to be this big guy that was gambling and borrowing all this money from these big people and just absolute train wreck. He owned a big YouTube channel, and he was a guest star on a channel called Ticker News.
Yep.
And he was like their main guest. He was doing crypto shows and stuff like that. And he kind of imploded, just fell off the radar. Just everything went to crap. And they were like, they needed some people to do their crypto shows. Okay. They were like, so I got a message. I actually know one of the anchors. It's a good friend of mine. Her name's Brittany. And she's one of the anchors that does some of the other news channels. And she was like, oh, you should come on. She'd been like pushing me to come onto this channel for a while, but I was constantly shutting it down because I didn't believe I was the person to go and talk on the news station.
Yeah.
Right. So I was constantly turning this opportunity down. And then I got a message from Mike one morning. He's like, person's bailed on tonight. We need a guest by tonight. And I didn't take the opportunity because I was too freaked out, because I was like, well, what am I going to say? Am I going to, you know, all these people know so much more about crypto than me, the story, which would be the story that I've been running for so many years, had been this like, who am I? And it allowed me to grow, but at a very, very slow pace, because it took me so long to make decisions. And it took me so long to say yes to myself and say yes to these opportunities. So I was still running this loop. Even when I was started Crypto Quantum, it took me so long to start it. Even when I started Crypto Quantum, it took me so long to up the prices. Even when I was doing this, it took me so long to say yes to coaching. It took me so long to make decisions and to actually step up, because there's so much unknown and uncertainty that came behind that. And that slowed me down massively. And it meant that it was this painful, long process rather than something that could happen straight away. And that dramatically shifted in the last couple of months, where it went from slow decisions to snap decisions. And I changed it from thinking first and then making a decision to making the decision first and then thinking.
Okay.
So now, and I'll explain where this has led me recently, because this has been insane. I have stepped into opportunities and then I work it out later. So I go, yes, and then work it out. And do you know what? Actually, I think the catalyst, I haven't thought about this too much. What the catalyst, I think, for this self-trust has been I've been doing a lot of live videos, and I've been doing a lot of recordings. And I've noticed this ability to switch on the live and just the answer comes out. The ability to switch on the camera or do a recording and straight away not have to think about it but be smack on and have the thing come out. And that
Yeah.
built a huge amount of self-trust, because I was like, oh, wait, I can just turn the camera on and then it comes out. And
Yeah.
I just practice this constantly, where I'm like, the camera's on, I'm on the live, and I just have the answer every single time.
Yeah.
And I nail it every single time. And so what happens now, what happened from that is like, oh, wow, what if I can apply this to other areas?
And
What if I could
that's not speaking on ego either. That's actually speaking
No.
on repetition, on skill building through repetition.
Yeah, it's a bit of backing yourself too, knowing that in the moment, the pressure actually helps you achieve at a high level. In the past, the pressure would have crushed me, but now the pressure actually helps me to achieve on a high level. If I'm to record a video, it might be a bit harder, but if I'm on a live, I have to execute and I do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to like deliberate. I don't have to get stuck up. I'm just like, the pressure's there. This is the time. And now I have to turn on the switch and I go.
I find it almost exactly the same. It's almost easier to record the video while doing a live and say the things that I want to say, knowing that I have an audience and that I'm speaking to someone, rather than speaking directly into the camera and I'll have to do 10 takes and
yeah, 100%. So what happened was that actually expanded to other areas of the life. So I got another opportunity for Ticker and I was like, yes. And I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if I was going to get torn into a rabbit hole that was going to be not great. And I was going to talk on a topic. Part of the fear was that I was going to get asked a topic in crypto that I didn't know enough about, and I'd get jammed up, and there were a lot of crypto watchers, and I'd be like, so that actually pushed me so hard to go like, okay, I got to learn even more, and I got to learn even more. I got to get more educated, but also like knowing that I have this, and I actually know so much more than I thought I did. Yeah. And so, the first episode of Ticker actually worked super well. Asked the questions, was smack on, smashed it, got invited back for the next week, smashed it the next week. And then I became a regular guest on Ticker News. And then it expanded to the point where the APAC head of crypto.com was doing one, and they wanted me to break down his interview. And so then what happened from that was like, that I did an interview breaking his down. Then I chatted to him on LinkedIn. He's like, thank you for not ripping into me. And like at that moment, it was almost like, I was like, wait, this is the guy who's the APAC head of crypto.com. He's running all of Australia and Pacific, which is a huge brand now. And this was crypto.com. This was after Staples Stadium and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like,
did the partnership with UFC.
Yeah. And for me, like, I mean, there was other stuff that happened before that had already backed myself, but it was kind of like thinking like, well, that person is someone who's in that space, who's thanking me for not ripping into them, for knowing. So it's really interesting kind of flipping happening. And kind of around the same time, a couple months ago, a friend of mine that actually did the first course, quite a successful friend of mine down in Melbourne, actually did that first. He was in that first intake for Crypto Quantum, but he never did any of it because he's so busy. He runs a really large software development company. He has 150 developers working for him. He's done really well. He started his own crypto platform.
Okay.
And he was asking me some questions. He was coming to me asking questions. And he was like, I want to find a way that I can get you involved with my projects because you know a lot about crypto. And I was teaching him a lot about different things. And so they founded Loop. So they founded a decentralized exchange built on Terra, which is Luna, called Loop.
Yep.
And we talked about it for a while. I gave him some recommendations, and then I pitched him Loop Learn, which was like building a gamified earn to learn experience, which is, incentivizing people to learn and bringing them through a journey. Because my mission was always to bring people into crypto in a way that they could understand it rather than being overwhelmed. It was always like, how can I bridge people into building wealth, and how can I bridge people into crypto so that they actually really understand it from a really basic level? And I always had this really good ability to explain really complicated topics and break them down in a way that beginners could understand. And I was like, I'm the perfect person for this. So I pitched them Loop Learn. They're like, we had a similar idea, but it was a smaller scale. So I scope crept the hell out of it. I came in and I'm like, okay, this is what we can do. This is this. But there's still a lot that I had to learn because, to be honest, there's so many depths to crypto that if I was going to build an experience, like something that was like on chain, it had to be very, very well researched. And it just expanded from there. Like it just kind of blew up. Terra Luna, we created partnership with the founding team behind Terra Luna. They were actually going to help us build these videos, the platform, everything just kind of expanded from there. Permission for Wealth expanded massively. And, I'm very heavily involved with building and making this a reality.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of stepping up, because it took a lot of saying yes to things that would have freaked the hell out of me 6 months ago. And they did freak the hell out of me after I said yes. But I said yes first and then freaked out and then worked out how to make it happen. And I've noticed this exponential growth that is past anything that I've experienced in the past, because I've kind of been around people that are stepping up to big opportunities, but I'm also like constantly growing and constantly pushing the agenda. And suddenly you're dealing in a completely different field where your competitors are bringing in $1 billion, and you're just playing at a completely different level of wealth, a completely different level of creation and of possibility. You've got teams doing this, you've got developers working on this, you've got video people doing this, and it's kind of elevated everything, and it's allowed me to keep pushing the agenda and keep growing and keep growing and keep growing to a level that I didn't experience ago. And it didn't start, and people might have think that that's where the opportunity started, but that opportunity started the whole year ago when I started saying yes to myself, and I started elevating these levels, and I started more and more associating with people that were doing really well, but also just taking on yes, 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 yes. And also saying no to something. And this is very, very important. Knowing what to say no to. And it was kind of following my gut and going like, I'm not going to go to this. I'm not going to coach with this person. I'm not going to do this. Or I've got to say no to all these events that people are inviting me to, because I've got to focus on this.
Yeah. And you
there's
also have
a million people running events.
You also have to be careful as well. And when you're making these gut decisions, is people think that that's actually listening to your feelings, and that's two different things. Your instincts and your feelings are different things, and
Yeah.
you have to work on exercising that instinct muscle. You're probably going to make a few little mistakes along the way, but exercising that instinct muscle gets you the ability to make yes and make better decisions quicker. The same as you were doing, building the reputations, going live.
Yeah, big time. It's a hard way to explain it, like how it is feeling, but it's not. It's kind of like this kind of like deep down knowing that's not the right thing. And and this is what I want everyone to understand. It never started at the opportunity to build, loop, learn. It started, as I said, 6 months ago, at all the yeses along the way that I said yes to, and all the opportunities where I stepped up and executed. And that built the belief to be able to know when this opportunity came, I'm like, I don't care if I know nothing and I'm not the right person for this. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to work out how to make it work.
So
and that level of self-trust.
Did you make these decisions out of a process of elimination, or did you see other people in your peripheral doing these things where they were eliminating the self-doubt by simply eliminating any chance of self-doubt?
No, actually, I didn't really see that from people around me too much. I think what was important was leveling up my circles, because as I level up the circles, it's kind of like a bubble of coach. It was kind of a bubble of coaches for a while. That was like people got trapped in this kind of under this ceiling.
Yeah.
But past that, there was a lot of people that I noticed were doing different things, and I kind of got just, it was more the self-trust that was leading it, because in the past I'd had so many issues with uncertainty that I was making the right decisions and doing the right things. But because I was starting to trust myself a lot more with the lives, the videos, and all this sort of stuff, I was like, I got this. What's the worst that could happen? And I'm like, I just started saying yes to things and going like, if I fail, doesn't matter. I'm going to make it work, and it's going to happen. And then the first time you do it, you're like, oh, wait, this worked out perfectly. And you do it again, and you're like, oh, damn, I nailed it again. And then again, and you just build up this crazy level of like faith in the ability to execute. And what happens is you put yourself in bigger pressure situations where you actually have to deliver. And so you end up delivering. So you work hard to deliver because you're like, I got this deadline, or I got to do this thing. And you end up doing it. And then you can go to the next level and the next level and the next level. And that becomes your standard. And then it's even bigger opportunities and bigger opportunities and bigger opportunities. And I started going bigger. If I was doing a negotiations on certain things, I just aim higher, because I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? What if I just go bigger? What's the worst going to happen if I just go bigger? And too many people kind of get stuck in that. They get stuck in this kind of playing here. And I kind of built the trust of going like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm just going to play higher. I'm just going to play higher. I'm just going to play higher.
Absolutely. And I feel what people really don't even entertain is the risk is actually so much higher sitting at the level that they are sitting at. The worst that can happen is that you come back to where you are now later on after trying to achieve greatness. And if you're
Big time.
trying to achieve greatness, there is the possibility that you're going to pull it off.
Absolutely. Do you know what's interesting too? And this is a really really important distinction. There's two types of opportunities that come to you. There's the ones that fall in your lap, and then you have to say yes without procrastinating and self-sabotaging them.
Yeah.
And there's the ones where you have to find them, where they're there, but you have to lead them. And this is the one with Loop, where the opportunity came, but I had to create that opportunity. It wasn't like, oh, come work for us, do this. It was a lot of conversation. It was a lot of pushing of me wanting to get involved. And then it was like, oh, I want to bring you in. What can you deliver? What can you offer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could have gone small there and gone, oh, I've got nothing to offer. Or I could have gone small.
Yeah.
But I stepped up and I was like, okay, this is what I can offer. I built a full pitch deck of recommendations that I was like, send this to the whole team. I was like, this is what I can create. This is the vision of what I can create. And I backed myself and I backed the vision of what I could create. And I pitched it and I went, this is what to do.
Yeah.
And then it happened. But I could have easily gone the other way and chosen the smaller person and either not got the opportunity or ended up working as a staff member or whatever it is on a small capacity. But instead I picked it. And after that, it's keep doing that. Like, what can you deliver? Who can you reach out to? If I'm building something in this line, what's the partnership that I can take on that is a massive partnership that no one would ever dare to go for? And now I'm just like on this kind of like jackass crazy role where I'm like, how big can we go? What's the best we could think? What's the like craziest thing that we can do that can make this go another level? And now my thinking is like very, very trying to go much high level and growing extremely fast by having the balls to take on things that most people don't think about. So powerful.
Super powerful. Super powerful.
Yeah. Some gold in that. And I think that realization's really changed my life in a lot of ways because you're not constricted by fear as much and uncertainty, which constricts a lot of people because it's always the unknown and not knowing whether you're the person to do something. But you can become the person to do it. You can spend 2 years trying to be ready, but you'll get ready faster in 1 month if you say yes first and have that month where you have to do it. You just get better a lot faster.
Yeah.
You know, it's like surfing. If you know, you could train out of the water to surf big waves for 2 years.
Yeah.
Or you could be a beginner that goes and dumps yourself in 10-foot surf and actually goes for it. You're probably going to get better a lot faster from that 1 day of surfing 10-foot surf than you have 2 years of preparing for it.
Yeah, and you won't have the opportunity to freeze the fuck up as you're dropping down the face.
You don't. You're going to die. You're going to die. If you freeze up, you die.
That's right.
So your instinct kicks in. It kicks in and you're like, oh shit, well, I got to get good. And that's kind of like a massive secret to success. That mixed with structure. I think structure, for the majority of people, I think structure is very important. I always teach this a bit. Where I'm at now, structure is important, but it's less important because I'm pushing on a whole nother plane. But if you're working a job and you're trying to leave that job and you're in this kind of level where you're wanting to up your wealth, it's about you want to create these kind of systems and of growing. You want to kind of remove the emotions out of it. So whether that's putting, $300 away a week, but being really good at putting that $300 away a week to investing and growing that, injecting cash and growing that, injecting cash. You want to kind of have that systemized approach where you can actually go up and up and up. And then, things will change along the way where you might change your circles and you'll be able to accelerate that. But if that's where you're stuck right now and you're kind of in that 9 to 5 kind of place, or you don't know what you want to do, that structure is really going to help you not sabotage all those opportunities, because you could easily make $10,000 and spend it all because you don't have that investing structure to keep it. So I always recommend, like, it's important to keep that structure. But then you also get a point where you're pushing past the structure, and I'm still doing that. I'm still investing and I'm still creating that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's important to look at that for sure.
No, you have to have that mentality as well. And you have to train that mentality, because it's not something that everybody's born with. That's the reason that 70% of people that win the lotto are broke within 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely.
They don't have the comprehension, and they just think that, oh, I'm rich now, I can go buy whatever I like. But if you go buy whatever you like, then you're giving your wealth away, and then you won't have it anymore.
I didn't have that. See, I struggled with that for a long time.
Okay.
There's two pieces to this, right?
All right.
There's two pieces, there's two interesting pieces, and it's kind of two ways that you can look at it. And it really depends on where you're at in your journey. I'm in a place right now where I actually still do have structure, but I'm in a place right now where I could probably spend as much money as I want, and I know that I'm going to make it back, and I'm
Sure.
able to make it back like that. Doesn't mean I'm going to, but I
Right.
can. And I know that like I've built that self-trust and I've built that ability to go, I can make it again. I
Yeah.
have the structure because I know, and you've seen people build, 9-figure businesses and then lose everything because,
Mhm.
they don't have that structure. So I still do have that. But I do know that I could go and spend money and I would find ways of making it again in a very short space of time. But for the majority of people, they don't have that trust and they don't have that thought around money, but they end up self-sabotaging themselves and coming back down to the same level. So they might win the lotto, but then as you say, they spend it all because they don't have the capability to hold that level of wealth. And so, and this is the same in crypto, people that are investing heavily in coins and they don't have structure. Just being able to kind of create that framework so that no matter what happens, you're still leveling up your floor as you go,
Yeah.
so that you don't get in a position where you lose half your wealth or 90% of your wealth.
There's a good portion of people that I think they're not comfortable having a container of wealth as large as what they acquire, and then they find a way to make that container small enough for them to be comfortable with.
Yeah, big time. There's a few ways. There's probably a few explanations. Everyone's got a different story, but some of it's come down to self-belief. Do I deserve this? Do I actually like money? Are my friends going to think I'm materialistic?
Yeah.
Are rich people bad? Like subconsciously, are rich people evil? Because if they're
Yeah.
evil and you want money but you don't like it, you're going to end up on this hamster wheel of like, conflict of like, oh, rich people are pricks, and that's what your subconscious is telling you, but you want to be rich. You're not going to be rich. You're not going to keep it, because when you get to that, you're going to think that you've become a prick.
Yeah, you're going to
So
push
you're
it
going to
away.
get rid of it really, really fast. So there's a few pieces of that. There's also just the meaning that people attach to money. There's such a like, almost like such a out of their awareness that having like $1 million is so much out of some people's awareness, like in terms of belief, that if they got that, they'd be like, this is a dream, right? This can't be me. I don't deserve this yet. Like,
Yeah.
and then they would just blow it all. Whereas if they did it incrementally and structure, it might be a different story, because you might to 5K a month, 10K a month, 20K a month. And then you sit at that level for a while and you get to the next level and you kind of become used to that rather than a huge influx. But I mean, this is funny. Like when I was 21, maybe 22, it was kind of funny because I was pushing towards, I always had this big vision. I was always like, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to do all this stuff. It's going to take a while, but I'm going to get there. This is where Tony Robbins thinks you underestimate what you can do in 10 years. That's a really powerful thing, because this is kicking in hard for me right now. But for a long time, it was like, I want to be wealthy. I'm pushing for success. But if someone actually asked me what it felt like to have 10K a month coming into the bank, if I was like actually imagining the thought of 10K coming into the bank, would freak the hell out of me. And that's not a lot of money. But for me at the time was like, that was like this crazy, crazy thought that, I was thinking about millions, but 10K a month seems like massive.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the shit? And that was where I knew the self-conscious beliefs in there. That's what I didn't truly trust myself and back myself to make it happen, because I wasn't even able to, I was able to imagine $2 million or $3 million, but I wasn't able to imagine $10,000 a month, because that's closer to reality, to what you actually expect. It's easy to dream of big things in the future and easy to dream massive of owning the massive house and the Bentley and all this sort of stuff. But if you bring the goal a lot closer to where it's actually achievable, but it's past your level of comfort, that's where you really like reality really sets in, of going like, oh shit, am I really on my path? Because if it's closer to where you are right now, it plays a different level, right?
It also lets you know what you need to work on, and by doing that, you're constantly taking stock of where your focus needs to be and things that you need to address. And a lot of people aren't willing to address themselves because they see everything as external from themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's not necessarily how this world works.
For sure. It is interesting. Something shifted a lot with me, like as well. I think I've gone a lot down the route of more purpose. I used to, and I still have to pull myself up on it a lot of times. I used to really, and actually my ex-girlfriend pulled this up on me, and that was quite powerful. I was it was kind of valuing people for their status. And we do this a lot in society, but I kind of valued people by their achievements and their wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that I didn't value people because they weren't, but I always was like, oh, I know this like I've just met this person who's a multi-millionaire, or I've met this person that's done this achievement. And I was valuing these external achievements as a measuring stick for like myself.
Yeah.
And I had to really take stock of that and go like, that was a real hard hit. I was like, oh crap, I didn't even notice I'm doing it. Like, I would talk about my friend who's done this or this or this. And instead going like, why? Like, why is that the measuring stick for that rather than that person's character? Why am I using that as the measuring stick? Because I'm measuring myself against that, and I'm measuring my what do you call it? My involvement with that person based on building my status. And we do this in society all the time. It's like a status class thing, right?
Clout chasing.
I really took clout chasing. And do you know, the funny thing is, the more, when I actually hit a place of, making a lot more money than I ever did in the past, or financial freedom, I actually desired the things less. I still want nice cars and nice houses and all this sort of stuff, but I still will have them, but I'm less urgent about it. Right? I'm still haven't upgraded my car. Actually going car shopping and going to get a nice one, but it's been less urgency. I've been more focused on the creation, the creativity, and that sort of side than feeling. In the past, it would have been the need to go and get the nicest thing as soon as possible to really boost my self-esteem and the thoughts of being a baller and making it. But now I'm like spending a lot of time on myself, doing my stuff, focused, creating. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that stuff will come after when I've created what I want to create. But I'm not like in a rush to just go out and buy a Bentley or do you know what I mean? Like in the past, that would have been like the first thing on my mind, and my first drive, and my first like, I've made it. I'm a baller now. Let's go do this. Not to show off to other people necessarily, but just to make myself feel better. Cause it's like, and now it's like, there's no urgency. It's like, it's there. I can do it, but there's not as much drive to do that anymore. But it's still something I want to do. I still want nice house, car, all this sort of stuff. I do love that stuff, but there's no, as I said, there's no rush. It's not like I need that right now, if that makes sense.
Something that I just thought about, you'd obviously know the law of reciprocity because you're familiar with Tony. Now, if you look at what you've been doing as you've been putting energy out into the ether, you've been creating, so you're adding, not subtracting. I don't know if you've looked at it this way, that you're actually working on the law of reciprocity. You're getting feedback from the world, positive feedback in the way of wins and opportunities and all these different things, because you've been creating, not consuming.
Big time. It's a delay in that though, because for a long time I was creating, I was adding value to the group, and I was like, why is this thing not growing? Like I'm creating and nothing's taking traction. But I just kept creating and I kept adding value. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been adding value to people for a long time.
Yes.
And the thing is, I would connect people with each other. I would connect someone with someone else, an entrepreneur with this person, without like I need something out of this, but it was like just kind of like this giving standpoint, but it was done out of a good place. It wasn't a place out of boundaries. I still had boundaries with all the giving that I did. Same on, even when I talk with crypto stuff, I would give value, but I wasn't like, I'm going to give you everything and I'm going to be like bowing down to you and everything like that. I still had boundaries, and, it comes back. It does come back, and you get noticed, and that value doesn't go unnoticed ever. Yeah. There's a time where you have to figure out what is actually adding value. That's number one, because what you think adding value isn't necessarily adding value. But then if you keep adding value and you just do it from a place of enjoying to give value and to just create and to do that stuff, as you said, it comes back, and it never goes unnoticed. It never, ever goes unnoticed. So help people as much as possible, give value, do all this stuff, but do it from a place with boundaries, right? And don't do it from a place of expecting a return.
No.
Do it from a place where you're strong in your stance. You're coming from a strength place. It's not like I'm going to let you walk all over me, but give value, and give value repeatedly before you even get the results, because it's faith that it's going to come back in some shape or form. And it could be someone's noticed your content and they introduce you to someone who's like, I love your stuff. Da da da. It just happens, and that's the key, right? Not take. And I see this a lot, and it's like, what can I get out of this? What can I get out of this? What can I get out of this? No, but what can I give? Because what can you give is so much more powerful. Because when you give people what they actually want, you create, people that you create fans, you create followers, you create people that see that. You create leadership, right? And then eventually it does come back in some shape or form. And it's not always the way monetary you think. It's not like I'm going to give you this and then 10 months down the line, you can give me $1,000. If you have that mindset, you're never going to give in the same way. It's got to come from a place where there is some strategy as well, where it's not just like that. But that's the self-trust piece. And you just get given opportunities, and then you step into those opportunities, and that gets to a new level, and then you can execute.
So what was your relationship like with money when you were a child? Is this something?
Never enough. Yeah. I grew up in quite a strict family. My dad was a pastor, worked over in France, didn't have a lot of money.
Okay.
So they were living off raised money from back in Australia. So they used to raise money and have supporters. Yep. So money was very, very, very limited, and there was never enough of it. And they lived off very little. And I learned some good skills from that, like being able to budget, but also learned the scarcity mindset that there's never enough of it at the end of the month, or, they never spent it on stupid things and this sort of stuff, but it was like $2 a week pocket money, this sort of stuff coming from that place. And I learned some powerful skills around respecting money, but it also chased me badly in my kind of early 20s, because I was like very resourceful, but I was extremely scarce, and it was always like scared of spending money because it wouldn't be enough tomorrow. So it'd be like, there was so many whack things that went through my head. Like there was even a stage I would only put, a certain amount of petrol in my car, because I was like, if my car breaks down, then I've wasted all this petrol. Like, wow. You think of that as a messed up mindset when it comes to money. That is it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, you're literally not like, take that as a symbolic metaphor, and you're never putting enough fuel in your car.
And you know what? I still don't put enough fuel in my car, but I do it from a different place. I do it because I cannot be stuffed sitting there at the petrol station waiting for it to fill up. I'm just like, I'm $40 in. I don't want to wait till the end. It's too long. But that's the symbolism of the scarcity of, like, if you're trying to make money and you're trying to save it, but because you don't think you're going to have any in 6 months, it's the same hamster wheel of scarcity. And I was in that place years ago, like on a quite a heavy level, because all I knew was uncertainty. All I knew was only having a job for a period of time. All I knew was casual work. All I knew was growing up in France and always moving houses and living somewhere different. So I never had that stability level that I was certain about the future, which was the thing that I needed to fix. And when I fixed that, everything changed, because then I had certainty. And I'm like, if it actually flips, it goes 180 degrees. Where when you flip it 180 degrees from being uncertain about the future to being certain about the future, your life changes, because you're like, I can do whatever the hell I want, and it's always going to work out. You could drop me in Dubai, you could drop me somewhere else where I don't know anyone, and I'm going to find a way to make it work. You could drop me in, I don't care if it's Iceland. I will find the person that I need to meet to add value to the right person, to get the house that I need, to do this, because I will find that person and I'll add value to them, and I will create a way in which I get what I want in that place. It might take some time, but I will make it happen. And when you've got that certainty and it flips, it just becomes like you're playing part of the video game. It's just a video game of life.
Yeah, and you'll enjoy it too.
Different way of looking at the world. Yeah,
you will enjoy.
You have a lot more fun.
You will enjoy it, and that's the major thing, is that people don't realize that when you're standing at your boundaries, when you're pushing your limits to what you think is possible, that's where adventure begins. And that applies for out in the wilderness. It applies for, going to a different country, all these things.
100%.
this is where you find out who you are.
Yeah.
Because how can you
sure.
truly know who you are if you've never pushed your boundaries, pushed your limits, tried, can I pull a car with a rope? You're not going to know unless you do it.
Yeah. It's dealing with your relationship with failure too. Like, what is failure? And I learned this about relationships recently, and my ex taught me this massively. Was like, for a long time, I struggled with it because my relationship to failure was that if it failed, if it ended, it failed, and it was a waste of time. That was my relationship. That was my relationship to relationships. And that was an awakening moment, because that goes into all areas of your life. What is your relationship like with having a business that you leave that is that you thought was a failure, but actually it's not, because it taught you something, right? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's not, I'd say it's more of a failure if you hang on to it for the fear of failure. If you hang on to something that's not making you happy and it's not giving you the fruits because you're scared of that it's going to come across as a failure, when in reality, like, the failure is not failing. The failure is not pushing to the point where failure is possible. Because I don't know whether the stuff I'm doing now is going to work out. It's going great so far. I'm building some cool stuff. I could build the thing, I've got all the data that I need, all the experience, and it could be an absolute failure. But I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with the fact that if it is a failure, which I don't think it will be, and I doubt it will be a failure, but if it is, I will pick myself back up. I will use the stuff that I know and the stuff that I've learned to create something else until something succeeds.
Yeah.
And I am not attached to that possible failure from it, because it's part of the experience and it's part of the journey. And if you're not in that place where it can fail, then you're not taking enough risk to be able to create something truly great.
And being attached to the outcome is actually, that is sitting in fear as well.
Absolutely. You're always going to have a bit of fear. Like, you're always going to have some attachment to the outcome, especially if you're creating something. Like, you don't want it to fail. It's not like, I don't care if it fails or not. But it's being okay with it. It's sitting in that sense of like, failure is not final, right? I mean, if it is in some cases if you fall off a cliff, but failure is not final. It's a teacher, and it sounds so cliche because you hear this so much, but it isn't. We're failing every day in certain things. When you learn to walk, you fail a few times, and business is no different. My failures in business have taught me more than some of my successes, because I was able to look at things and go, well, this hasn't worked. This hasn't worked. This is something I did that didn't work. So how can I change it next time and make something different?
Quite often I'll be sitting in traffic and I'll be thinking about something that happened 3 days ago, and it'll just be a conversation, something, and I'll just be mildly amused by it. And I'll go, I could have probably worded that better, or I probably could have done something different there. You're always,
when something awkward happens, right? You say something awkward, or something awkward happens, you're like, oh. But then after a couple of days, I look back and I go, I didn't die.
Yeah.
No one died.
And that's generally the outcome that I conclude to as well.
Yeah,
is
I didn't die.
I could have, but I didn't.
Exactly.
It didn't happen that way. It happened the way it happened, and that's the only way that it could have happened, because it's happened that way. So do you journal? Something that I was very interested.
No, I do from time to time.
Okay.
I'm terrible at that stuff. So
how do you keep track about how do you keep track of these things that you're reflecting upon? So you mentioned that your ex-girlfriend brought a few things up for you recently. Did you expand upon that, or even go for a surf and think about it while you were surfing?
Yeah. Look, my brain, I'm constantly reflecting. Just the way that my brain's wired is, I can't switch it off. I can be in chill mode, but I'm a constant reflector. So because I'm thinking at such a speed all the time, this stuff happens anyway. I mean, writing and stuff would help expand it, but I'm able to do that as it is off the bat. So I think because it's already happening, it's not too, what is it, like when I'm driving, when I'm surfing, when I'm doing this sort of stuff, it kind of happens. Yeah. And I'm kind of doing it on the fly. So, journaling, I love the idea of journaling. It's just like, I didn't like the idea of I have to do this, and I just do it when I feel like doing it.
Yes.
But I'm reflecting on this stuff, and I'm kind of breaking everything apart all the time as I'm going. I'm like, this, take a piece of this, and this, and this, and this. What did I learn here? This, and I'm piecing it together constantly. Yeah.
Interesting. That must mean you've got a pretty good memory
Oh, I
for
do. I
storage.
can absorb information. I can absorb information in an incredible rate.
Yeah.
So, like you look at certain things in crypto, like I've delved very very deep into very deep levels of crypto in terms of stuff that even in the past I hadn't delved into deep chains and into developer stuff and to like all these deep levels, and mainly to do with the fact that I'm building education in the crypto space that is more than just your run of the mill entry level. Like it's going deep and it's going into these complicated topics you have to explain, and I can learn it, and I can understand it, and I can teach it straight away if I wanted to,
Yeah.
because I'm able to take it in and break it apart in my own brain, break it into understandable pieces, categorize it, and then understand it completely.
Well, they say
And
the
it's a
best way to
gift.
learn is to teach.
Yeah, it is. But I actually understand it before I teach it. It's
Interesting.
almost like my brain compartmentalizes it, and it takes something and it turns it into something else.
Okay.
And I'm able to split it into analogies, and I'm able to kind of break it down to its base level and then build it back up. So I'll take something really, really complicated, and this will happen at light speed, and I'll break it down into like 1,000 different parts. And then from those parts, I'll rebuild it. And then from that,
Interesting.
this is all happening inside my brain, but I do
Yeah.
this, and then I'm able to kind of like, and this is why I've been really good at the education side, because I'm really able to break it down into such a level of understanding to then build it into a easier go, hey, actually, what is the best way to understand this from any perspective? And so you've taken something that's maybe ununderstandable or really hard to understand, and then given it a twist where people may be able to understand it. That makes sense.
My brain's a little bit more lazier than that. And it refuses to do the work unless it has to serve somebody else. So unless I have to teach it to somebody else, and then in that case, it does that work that you just said, breaks it down
Yeah.
into digestible information. And while I'm teaching somebody else, I'll literally have a light bulb.
Yeah.
Go, oh shit, that's what it means.
Yeah, it's the way my brain's wired as well. Like I've always had Asperger's, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive, because I don't get some of the same, negative social skills that many people have in that situation. But it gives me a level of depth and thought where I'm able to my brain's able to go very, very, very deep and understand things on a different plane. And it serves a powerful purpose, because I'm able to kind of go down all these different rabbit holes and break something down, learn it extremely fast, and then turn it into something.
Normally people have to take Adderall for that shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Adderall would help. I mean, you're doing 10 things at once, and you're like, just be like, but.
Yeah, man, that is
cool.
That is really deep. We went some places. So if you think about your whole journey overall, you started with what, a couple of $1,000 while you were working selling suits.
Yeah.
And what has it been? 3 years? 4 years?
Was it 2000? Started 2018. So kind of mid to endish 2018, I got very sort of, that's where it really kind of got on path. So.
And where do you?
What is that?
It's close to 5 years.
Is it 5 years? No, it's not that long.
21, 18. You're 2 to get to 20, and then 23.
21. So about 3.5 years. About 3.5 years. 3.5 years, yeah. So 3.5 years, life's very different. Next year, looking at doing possible 8 figures kind of vibe, possibly more. And that's not even to kind of put it in perspective of going on, it's just understanding how fast things can change.
Yeah.
How fast things can like happen for you, and how you can really grow in a very short space of time. And I was constantly thinking of it as a linear thing, but actually it can happen like this. And it's just being able to kind of find what you really enjoy, find what you're good at or you can become good at, and apply yourself and push hard into the risk, and knowing that you're going to have maybe a different goal. Maybe your goal is just to create basic financial freedom where you can pay your bills and not have to worry about money. Or maybe it's something even bigger. For me, it's a lot bigger because my goals are very, it's about creation, and I want to have big global impact. So it's going to be look very different for me, and I'm pushing a lot harder. Where some people probably get to where I'm at right now and be like, I'm set for life. But that's not the way I look at it, because I'm looking at something completely different. I'm playing a completely different game.
Yeah.
So
people sitting at home, they want to try and replicate your journey or have their own journey and enjoy similar success. What would the advice that you give them be in respect to the way they adopt their journey, the way that they navigate themselves?
Yeah, I do a couple of things. I would look at maybe the last couple of years and ask yourself, what have you done in the last couple of years that is getting you forward? So what is it? Like, maybe analyze your finances, even, for example. And are you putting money away? Are you investing? Are you moving forward? Look at the people around you. So look at the circle around you, in your closest circle, and go, well, what do I actually want? So actually, first is what do you actually want? What do you value in terms of actual physical? What do you value in terms of values? And what would you want your life, if you could have anything, what would you want your life to actually look like in 5 years? Like, what would you want your life to, whether it's your material possessions, values, the people around you, the way that you think, where you're living, all this stuff. Start trying to create an image of, if there was no boundaries and it was up to whatever, what would you want your life to look like? And then I'd reverse engineer that and go, what are the kind of people I need to be around to think this way? What are the kind of people I need to be around to have these things? What do I need to do to get these things? And once you start to reverse engineer it, you can actually go out and maybe the people around you, you need to bring some people around you that think the way that you want to think. So maybe you then have to go, what are the traits that, like, reverse engineering everything and going, what are the traits that these people have? Where do they hang out? What are they doing? How can I add value to these people? How can I bring these people into my circle? How can I go into these people's circle? Because I know that if I want to think that way, I got to be around people that think that way. So that's one. I would be like trying to find these people and actively trying to find out how you can add value to them. Not just like, oh yeah, they're going to take me in as an orphan, but going like, hey, how can I start to do some things with these guys? Where can I meet them? What can I do? It's not necessarily financially, because it could be adventure. It could be you want to go on more adventures. So you're going to want to join a rock climbing gym or do different things with people that have those values and traits hang out, right? Secondly, you want to find out what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and what skills can help you get to where you want to go. So if in 5 years you want to have a $10 million business or a $5 million business, well, what skills do you actually need to have to build that business? Do you need sales skills? Is it a coaching business? Do you need whatever it is? What skills do you need to be a good networker? What do you need to actually make that happen? And then figure out how to get those skills and figure out what you're good at that you enjoy doing, because you don't want to build, if you don't want to build something that you're miserable at. So there's a few pieces, but I think the key ones are figuring out, like, reverse engineering that to be able to look at it from the perspective of, okay, what are the actual steps that I need to break down to get to that goal? And how can I put those in place so that I can get to where I want to go? And that helps change a lot of things.
Awesome. And do you suggest any resources or any books or anything, or you think that might muddy the waters and that they should try and develop their own skill sets and recognition
it's
of
a bit
those
of both.
skill sets?
I'm not against books, but are books a band-aid is the question, right? I'm not against books. I'm not against podcasts. Personal development helps you think differently and think bigger. And it's also an environmental thing if you're around that a lot of the time. But I can tell you, I've grown more from doing in the last couple months than I did from 4 years of personal development. That grew me a lot, but personal development, as they say, shelf development, because you could read as many books in the world, But if you're not actually actioning the pieces and you're not putting yourself in environments and you're not doing the stuff that matters more, it doesn't serve you. So you kind of got to do two in parallel. Put yourself around books, learn new stuff. I mean, skills, part of building skills is reading and practicing. But yeah, they've got to put themselves in a position where they're actually actioning these steps and they're doing this stuff rather than just reading books. So I recommend them, but yeah.
Is there anything that you've read that stands out that is enlightening?
Yeah, I've read a lot of books. I really like The Alchemist.
Paulo Coelho.
Small little book.
Yep.
Yeah, I love The Alchemist. That's a cool story. There's a lot of metaphors that can be pulled. Start with Why by Simon Sinek's one powerful book. Extreme Ownership. There's tons. I've got heaps of them. I've gone through a lot of books, but oftentimes they're gonna usually teach you things that you already know. Another one, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is a very powerful book for me around building social skills. I read that book like 10 times. I really needed it.
Same. That started me off.
Yeah. But self-reflection and being able to reflect on yourself is important. But yeah, just jump into the unknown. Take opportunities that you would never take and watch your life change. Change the people around you. I don't mean culling everyone. I don't mean just cutting everybody off straight away unless they're toxic. But you would gravitate to the people that you hold, the values that you hold dear. So go out, meet some cool people, and watch your life change. That's what I'll say.
Crazy. I love it. Simon, I hope that we get to catch up and have a surf soon.
For sure.
Got a new
stuck in WA when they open these borders.
Got a new twin fin fish coming. That'll be good to. Yeah.
There you go.
Excited.
I need to get a new quiver.
Take it down to Margaret River soon over the Christmas break.
There you go.
It's there on the weekend.
It's nice. Watch out for that rock ledge.
Yeah. Simon, it's been great to have you on the podcast. I look forward to next time we talk. We're going to have to do it again soon. You're going to have to keep me updated with Loop and all the adventures that you're having over that side.
Will do.
Hopefully I'll be able to come over and see you in person, have a skate, have a surf, hang out.
Awesome.
All
Epic.
right, mate.
Thanks,
bud. See ya.
No worries.